He thought paralysis had taken his legs. But on his 38th birthday, Ethan Park was about to discover that power had taken something far more precious. Rain pressed against the 20-foot windows of the Park estate, turning the lights of Chicago into trembling gold beyond the glass, while 20 crystal glasses waited untouched beneath a chandelier worth more than most homes. 20 chairs, 20 silver place settings, 20 folded black napkins arranged with military precision along a walnut table nearly 30 feet long. And at the head of it sat one man. Ethan Park wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, his dark hair swept back, his expression controlled, his wheelchair positioned so precisely that no one would dare suggest a servant had helped him. At exactly 8 o'clock, the grandfather clock struck once, twice, then continued until the final chime dissolved into the mansion's silence. Ethan glanced toward the front windows. Nothing. Maya Brooks saw the movement from the hallway. She had been holding a silver coffee pot for nearly 4 minutes, afraid even the sound of her shoes against the marble might remind him that someone was watching. Ethan Park was not a man people watched with pity. Everyone on the staff knew that. At 8:15, headlights appeared beyond the iron gates. Ethan's fingers stopped against the armrest. Just for half a second, Maya noticed him straighten his cuff, then smooth the front of his jacket. The headlights grew brighter. A car passed the estate without slowing. Ethan's hand became still. At 8:30, the candles burned lower. At 8:45, the ice in 20 water glasses had melted into clear, silent pools. At 9, the chef quietly asked whether dinner should be reheated. Ethan didn't answer. His phone rested beside his plate, black screen facing upward. It had rung 11 times that evening. Business. Contracts. Men asking for approval. Men asking for money. Men asking Ethan Park to solve problems they were too frightened to solve themselves. Not one voice had said happy birthday. Maya lowered her eyes when Ethan looked toward the hallway. Too late. He had seen her. How long have you been standing there? His voice was quiet, controlled, colder than the rain outside. I'm sorry, sir. That wasn't my question. Maya's fingers tightened around the coffee pot. For minutes, Mr. Park. Ethan studied her. Maya was 27, a shy black maid who had worked in his home for 3 months and had somehow mastered the rare skill of disappearing without appearing afraid. Tonight, however, she looked uncomfortable. Not frightened. Sad. Ethan hated that look more than fear. Do you need something? He asked. No, sir. Then go. Maya nodded and turned. Behind her, the grandfather clock continued ticking. She reached the kitchen doors before Ethan's phone lit again. His eyes dropped to the screen. Maya shouldn't have looked back. She did. For one impossible second, hope crossed his face, then vanished. Ethan turned the phone face down. Clear the table. The staff moved immediately. Plates disappeared. Glasses vanished. Chairs were pushed in. Maya approached the center of the table and lifted the birthday cake with both hands. White frosting. Simple black lettering. Happy birthday, Ethan. She felt something tighten in her chest. Across the room, Ethan removed a silver watch from his wrist and placed it beside his untouched plate. Maya knew enough about expensive things to recognize that it had probably cost more than she would earn in 10 years. What she didn't know was that Ethan had bought it for himself 3 days earlier, wrapped it, and left it in his study until that morning. No one else knew. No one had asked. Maya carried the cake toward the kitchen while Ethan rolled toward the dark windows, his reflection floating alone against the glass. The city feared him. Powerful men answered when he called. Hundreds knew his name. But that night, 20 chairs had delivered a truth no enemy ever could. No one came. 3 months earlier, Maya Brooks had learned the first rule of the Park estate before she had even finished signing her employment papers. Never help Ethan Park unless he asks. Mrs. Caldwell, the gray-haired house manager who had served the family for 17 years, delivered the warning without looking up from Maya's application. If he drops a book, leave it. If a door is heavy, let him open it. If his chair catches on a rug, you saw nothing. Maya had blinked. What if he needs help? Mrs. Caldwell finally raised her eyes. Then Mr. Park will ask. Maya understood the rule the first morning she saw him. Ethan emerged from his study at 7 sharp, dressed in black, his wheelchair moving silently across the polished marble. 2 men in tailored suits stood when he entered the breakfast room. The chef stopped speaking. Even Mrs. Caldwell straightened. Ethan did not raise his voice. He did not need to. His presence changed the temperature of every room he entered. Maya had heard whispers about him in the staff kitchen. Men across Chicago feared disappointing Ethan Park. Business owners returned his calls before the first ring ended. People who had never met him lowered their voices when saying his name. Yet inside his own home, Ethan seemed to spend most of his energy proving he needed no one. The accident had happened 14 months earlier. Maya never asked for details. She only knew that before it, Ethan had walked through the estate with the confidence of a man who believed every floor belonged beneath his shoes. Afterward, 3 private nurses had lasted less than 6 weeks combined. The first pushed his wheelchair without permission. Ethan dismissed her before lunch. The second repeatedly called him brave. She was gone by Friday. The third said, "I am sorry," after watching him struggle with a cabinet door. Ethan paid her for the entire month and asked security to escort her outside. "He hates pity," Mrs. Caldwell whispered. Maya understood that better than anyone realized. So she never rushed toward him, never grabbed objects from his hands, never finished tasks his body forced him to complete slowly. During her second week, she watched Ethan spend nearly a full minute opening a heavy library door while carrying a folder across his lap. Maya stood 10 feet away with fresh towels in her arms. Every instinct told her to step forward. She stayed still. Ethan finally pulled the door open. Before entering, he looked at her. "You were watching." Maya swallowed. "Yes, sir." "Why did you not help?" She chose her words carefully. "You did not ask." Silence filled the hallway. Ethan's dark eyes moved across her face, searching for mockery, discomfort, perhaps sympathy. Maya gave him none. "Good," he said. Then he entered the library. But after that morning, Ethan began noticing her. He noticed that Maya always looked at his face before she looked at his chair. He noticed she placed coffee close enough to reach, but never directly into his hand. He noticed that when other staff members spoke slowly to him, Maya spoke normally. She was shy, almost painfully so, and rarely used more words than necessary. Still, there was something unusual in her silence. It did not make Ethan feel observed. It made him feel left alone in the right way. For a man surrounded by people terrified of making a mistake, that was rare. For Ethan Park, rare things were dangerous. Because rare things had value. And everything valuable eventually gave a man something to lose. By the time Ethan decided to prepare the birthday dinner, Maya had worked at the estate long enough to recognize when he was pretending not to care. It began 6 days before his birthday, when Mrs. Caldwell entered the kitchen carrying a cream-colored card covered in Ethan's precise handwriting. 20 names. No addresses. No phone numbers. Just names arranged in a single column. "Mr. Park wants the formal dining room prepared next Thursday," she announced. "Dinner for 21. The kitchen erupted into quiet motion. Menus were discussed. Flowers were ordered. Silver was removed from locked cabinets and polished until Maya could see her reflection in every spoon. No one asked who was coming. In Ethan Park's home, questions were expensive things. Maya was dusting his study the following afternoon when she noticed the same 20 names on a yellow legal pad beside his desk. She did not read private papers. She had survived too many jobs by understanding that wealthy people valued invisibility almost as much as loyalty. But one word caught her eye. Loyal? Ethan had written it beside the first name. The same word appeared beside the second. And the third. Loyal? 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 Maya stepped away from the desk. Just as Ethan entered, his wheelchair stopped in the doorway. "Did you read that?" Maya's stomach tightened. "I saw one word, sir." "Which word?" "Loyal." Ethan rolled closer. Afternoon sunlight cut across his face, revealing exhaustion beneath the controlled expression he wore like armor. "And what do you think it means?" Maya lowered her cleaning cloth. "I do not think you pay me to guess." Something almost changed in his expression. Almost. Smart answer. He picked up the legal pad and closed it inside a drawer. Maya returned to dusting, but the question followed her for days. She understood on the morning of his birthday. Mrs. Caldwell was checking the dining room when Maya quietly asked where the invitations had been placed. The older woman frowned. "What invitations?" Maya looked toward the 20 chairs. "For dinner." Mrs. Caldwell became very still. Neither woman spoke. They did not need to. Ethan had invited no one. The realization felt strangely personal, as if Maya had accidentally opened a door into a room he kept locked from the entire world. Before the accident, Ethan's birthday had been an event people competed to attend. Restaurants closed private floors for him. Gifts arrived from Los Angeles, Miami, Seoul, and New York. Men who claimed to be his brothers raised glasses and promised loyalty, respect, permanence. After the accident, the gifts became business deliveries. The calls became requests. The visits became meetings. People still needed Ethan Park's name. They simply stopped wondering whether Ethan Park needed them. That evening, Maya passed his study at 6:30 and saw him adjusting his tie in the mirror. A small velvet box rested open on the desk. Inside was the silver watch she would later see beside his untouched plate. Ethan lifted it carefully and fastened it around his own wrist. No card, no ribbon, no other hands. Maya kept walking before he could notice her. By 7:30, the candles were lit. By 7:45, dinner was ready. At 7:59, Ethan entered the dining room and positioned himself at the head of the table. He looked at the 20 empty chairs. Then he looked toward the windows. Maya finally understood the question beside every name. Ethan was not waiting for guests he had invited. He was waiting to learn who remembered him without being told. The clock struck 8. Ethan raised his eyes toward the front gate, and the test began. At 8:17, another pair of headlights swept across the rain-darkened driveway, and Ethan looked up before he could stop himself. The movement was small, almost invisible, but Maya saw it from beside the service door. The black sedan slowed near the iron gate. Ethan straightened his shoulders. His right hand moved toward his jacket cuff. Then the sedan continued down the road and disappeared behind the trees. Ethan stared at the empty driveway for 3 seconds. "More coffee, sir?" Maya asked softly. "No." His answer came too quickly. At 8:32, the candles had burned nearly an inch lower. The chef sent out the first course anyway, a delicate plate that required 6 hours of preparation. Ethan did not touch it. At 8:41, his phone rang. The name on the screen was Marcus Reed, one of the 20 men from the legal pad. Ethan answered on the second ring. "Marcus." Maya turned away, pretending to adjust a side table. "Yes," Ethan said. "I reviewed the numbers." A pause. "Tomorrow morning is fine." Another pause. Ethan's eyes moved toward the untouched place sitting beside him. "Anything else?" The silence on the other end lasted barely a second. "Good night, Marcus." Ethan ended the call. No birthday wish. No memory. Just numbers. At 8:53, another message appeared. "Need your signature before noon." At 9:04, a second. "Can we move Friday's meeting?" At 9:11, a third. "Call me when you have a minute." Maya watched Ethan turn his phone face down. The room seemed larger after that. 20 chairs had looked elegant at 7:30. By 9:17, they looked cruel. Each empty seat carried a name Maya had seen on that list. Men who had toasted Ethan in photographs displayed in the upstairs gallery. Men who had stood beside him at charity dinners. Men who had once filled this house with laughter loud enough to reach the second floor. Ethan lifted his water glass, but his hand paused halfway. Outside, thunder rolled across the city. "Mr. Park," Mrs. Caldwell said carefully from the doorway. "Would you like us to keep dinner warm?" Ethan lowered the glass. "Clear the table." Mrs. Caldwell hesitated. "Only for a heartbeat." "Yes, sir." The staff moved at once. Maya collected plates while 2 servers removed the untouched glasses. No one spoke. Even the silverware seemed too loud against the china. When Maya reached the birthday cake, she stopped. The white frosting remained perfect. "Happy birthday, Ethan." For words written for a man no one had remembered. "Throw it away," the chef murmured when she entered the kitchen. Maya looked at him. "The cake. Mr. Park will not want it tomorrow." A young server gave a quiet laugh while stacking plates. "You can take it home if you want. Maybe celebrate with him yourself." Maya's hands tightened around the cake tray. The server noticed her expression. "What?" "I am joking." Maya said nothing. Her eyes remained steady. She carried the cake toward the large trash bin, then stopped 3 feet away. Behind her, the kitchen returned to work. Pots moved. Water ran. Someone opened the refrigerator. Maya looked down at Ethan's name written in frosting. She remembered the way he had adjusted his cuff when headlights appeared. She remembered the silver watch. She remembered the question written beside 20 names. "Loyal?" Maya turned away from the trash. "Mrs. Caldwell," she said. The house manager looked up. Maya almost lost her courage. "Almost. May I keep the cake?" Mrs. Caldwell studied her for a long moment. "Why?" Maya looked toward the dark hallway leading back to the dining room. I do not know yet. That was not entirely true. Somewhere beneath her shyness, beneath 3 months of careful silence and lowered eyes, an idea had already begun to form. It was inappropriate. It would break rules. Ethan Park might dismiss her before sunrise. Maya lifted the cake. For the first time since entering the Park estate, being invisible no longer felt like the right thing to do. At 11:47 that night, Ethan heard furniture moving in the formal dining room. He was alone in his study, the silver watch, resting beside a closed folder, when a low scrape traveled through the silent hallway. He looked toward the door. The estate had been quiet for nearly an hour. Most of the kitchen staff had gone home, and Mrs. Caldwell had retired to her room on the east side of the house. Another scrape, then a soft thud. Ethan moved into the hallway, guiding his wheelchair across the dark marble. He did not call security. He did not turn on the overhead lights. The sound came again as he approached the dining room. Someone was inside. Ethan stopped outside the doorway and listened. Quick footsteps, a chair dragging, then a woman's frustrated whisper. Come on, please move. Ethan recognized the voice. Maya. He entered. What are you doing? Maya froze with both hands wrapped around the back of a dining chair. 19 chairs had been pushed against the far wall. The formal white tablecloth was gone. Half the chandelier lights had been turned off, leaving the room softer, smaller, almost unfamiliar. On the enormous walnut table sat the birthday cake, a bottle of orange soda, 2 plain white plates from the staff kitchen, and 1 candle. Maya stared at Ethan as if the floor had vanished beneath her feet. Mr. Park. Ethan looked around the room. I can see that. Maya released the chair. I was going to put everything back. That was not my question. His voice remained controlled. Maya swallowed. Her hands folded together, then separated, then folded again. Ethan had seen powerful men become less nervous while asking him for millions of dollars. I am fixing something, sir. At midnight. It is not midnight yet. Ethan glanced at the grandfather clock. 11:49. His eyes returned to her. You have 11 minutes. Maya nodded as though he had granted her a business extension. Then she reached for another chair. Ethan watched her drag it toward the wall. Stop. Maya stopped. Explain. She looked at the 19 chairs lined against the room. They looked wrong. The chairs looked wrong. Yes, sir. They looked perfectly normal at dinner. Maya's eyes lowered. No, sir. They looked empty. The words settled between them. Ethan's jaw tightened. Maya immediately regretted saying it. I am sorry. Do not. His voice sharpened. Maya remembered the rule. Never say I am sorry. She took a slow breath. There were too many chairs. Ethan looked at the table. Only his chair remained at the head. One simple wooden chair from the staff kitchen had been placed beside the table, several feet away. So you stole my cake. Mrs. Caldwell gave it to me. You rearranged my dining room. Yes, sir. You took dishes from the staff kitchen. Maya glanced at the plates. I planned to wash them. Ethan stared at her. And the orange soda? For the first time, Maya looked embarrassed for an entirely different reason. It was all the vending machine had. Silence. Then something strange happened in Ethan's face. Not a smile. He seemed to have forgotten how. But the coldness shifted. Maya. Yes, sir. Why are there 2 plates? Her courage disappeared. She looked at the clock. 11:53. 7 minutes remained. She could still leave. She could apologize without using the forbidden word, return the furniture, and pray she still had a job in the morning. Instead, Maya walked to the plain wooden chair. Her fingers rested against its back. Because 20 chairs made it look like 19 people chose not to come. Ethan became completely still. Maya pulled the wooden chair closer to the table. I thought maybe one person who did come could be enough. The room went silent. Ethan looked at her. Truly looked at her. Fixing your birthday, sir, Maya whispered. Ethan looked at the plain wooden chair for so long that Maya began to hear every small sound in the room. Rain against glass. The slow ticking of the grandfather clock. Her own breathing. 11:54. Sit down, Ethan said. Maya blinked. Sir, you brought a chair. His eyes remained on her. I assume you understand its purpose. Maya pulled the chair back, then hesitated. Staff did not sit with Ethan Park. Staff stood behind him, beside him, or far enough away to disappear. She had served breakfast while men in $1,000 suits waited for permission to speak. She had watched attorneys remain standing until Ethan acknowledged them. Now she was about to sit at his table wearing a simple black work dress and shoes that cost $30. Maya. Yes, sir. The chair. She sat. Her back was so straight it almost hurt. Ethan glanced at the distance between them. Nearly 6 feet. Are we having dinner from opposite sides of the state? Maya looked down. No, sir. She moved the chair closer by several inches. Ethan waited. Maya moved it again. Better. She placed the cake between them and reached for the knife. Her hand stopped above it. Ethan noticed. What? Maya slowly pulled her hand away. You should cut it. Ethan's expression closed immediately. You can do it. I know. Then do it. Maya shook her head. The movement was small, but Ethan saw it. I do not think I should. Why? Maya looked at the cake, then at his hands. Because it is your birthday. Ethan's voice became colder. Do not make this complicated. I am not trying to. Cut the cake, Maya. She met his eyes. For 3 months, she had obeyed every instruction he gave her. This time, she stayed still. No, sir. The clock ticked. Ethan's fingers tightened against the armrest. People do not usually tell me no in my own house. Maya's heart hammered. I noticed. Ethan stared at her. Maya almost smiled, then thought better of it. She lowered the cake from its decorative stand and placed it directly on the table, closer to Ethan. Then she turned the handle of the knife toward him. I am not going to cut it for you. Ethan's eyes hardened. Maya continued before fear could silence her. But I can sit here while you do. Silence filled the room. Ethan looked down at the knife. Maya did not move. She did not reach toward him. She did not say it would be easier if she helped. She simply waited. Slowly, Ethan took the handle. His hand was steady at first. Then his fingers tightened. The angle was awkward from the wheelchair. He adjusted his position. Maya looked at the candle instead of his hands. Ethan pressed the knife into the frosting. It slipped sideways. He stopped. Maya said nothing. He tried again. The knife cut half an inch into the cake before turning. Ethan's jaw tightened. You can look away. Maya kept her eyes on the candle. I already am. Something passed across Ethan's face. Frustration. Surprise. Perhaps gratitude, though he would never have named it. He repositioned the cake himself. The knife entered the frosting again. This time it held. Maya remained seated. No pity. No rushed hands. No soft voice telling him he was brave. Just company. The grandfather clock began its midnight chime as Ethan slowly completed the first cut. 1, 2, 3. Maya smiled. Happy birthday, Mr. Park. Ethan looked at the crooked slice of cake, then at the single wooden chair beside him. 20 people had forgotten the day he was born. The shyest woman in his house had broken nearly every rule to make sure he did not spend its final minute alone. The first slice collapsed onto Ethan's plate in 3 uneven pieces. Maya stared at it for 1 second, then nodded with complete seriousness. Perfect. Ethan looked at the cake, then at her. Perfect. Yes, sir. It looks terrible. Maya pressed her lips together. I was trying to be supportive. Ethan's eyes narrowed, but the corner of his mouth moved. Maya noticed. She immediately looked down at her plate. Ethan noticed that too. You can laugh. I was not laughing. You were about to. I would never laugh at my employer. Maya. Her shoulders lifted with a quiet breath. Then a tiny sound escaped her. It was barely a laugh, more like air slipping through a door she had tried to keep closed. Ethan stared at her. Maya's smile disappeared. I can leave. No. The word came so quickly that both of them became still. Ethan looked toward the windows. The cake has already been damaged. You might as well stay. Maya understood the excuse and accepted it without exposing him. She poured orange soda into the 2 crystal glasses that had somehow survived her midnight rearrangement. The bright drink looked ridiculous beneath the chandelier. Ethan lifted his glass. This is what you chose for my birthday. The vending machine also had Diet Cola. You made the correct decision. Maya smiled again. This time Ethan did not look away. She placed the single candle in the center of the cake and lit it. The small flame trembled between them. You forgot something, Ethan said. Maya frowned. What? People usually sing. Her eyes widened. You want me to sing? You stole my birthday cake, moved 19 chairs, refused a direct instruction, and served me orange soda and crystal. Are you suddenly shy? Maya looked genuinely horrified. Ethan waited. I cannot sing. Neither can most people. Mr. Park. The candle is burning. Maya closed her eyes for half a second. Then she began. Her voice was quiet and uncertain. missing one note so badly that Ethan raised an eyebrow. Maya stopped. Do not. I said nothing. Your face did. Continue. She finished the song with red cheeks, and both hands folded tightly in her lap. When the final word faded, the mansion became silent again. Ethan looked at the candle. He had attended birthday dinners with hundreds of guests. He had heard orchestras play while champagne bottles were opened around him. He had received watches, cars, paintings, and gifts selected by assistants who never knew him. None of those memories returned. Instead, he watched one small flame reflected in Maya's dark eyes. Make a wish, she whispered. Ethan almost dismissed the idea. Wishes belonged to children and people who believed the world listened when they asked politely. Still, he closed his eyes. Maya waited. When Ethan opened them, he leaned forward and extinguished the candle. What did you wish for? She asked. If I tell you, it will not happen. Maya blinked. You believe that? No. Then tell me. Ethan looked at her, and for the first time that night, a real laugh escaped him. It was brief, rough from disuse, but unmistakable. Outside the dining room, a security guard stopped walking. Mrs. Caldwell, awake and standing farther down the hallway, slowly turned her head. No one in the Park estate had heard that sound in 14 months. Maya stared at Ethan. He noticed. What? Nothing, sir. You are staring. I have never heard you laugh. The warmth vanished from Ethan's expression, but not because he was angry. He turned toward the dark window. In the glass, Maya saw his reflection. She also saw the moisture gathering in his eyes before he lowered them. She did not mention it. She did not offer a tissue. She simply took a bite of the crooked cake. It is good, she said softly. Ethan looked at his own plate. After a moment, he picked up his fork. It is too sweet. Maya nodded. Perfect, then. Ethan laughed again. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. The orange soda slowly lost its bubbles. The candle released a thin ribbon of smoke, and the rain softened against the windows until the mansion seemed separated from the rest of Chicago. Ethan ate another bite of cake. Why? He asked. Maya looked up. Why what, sir? Why did you do this? Her fingers stopped around her fork. Ethan studied her with the same focused expression he used in meetings, except there was no coldness behind it now. You could have taken the cake home. You could have ignored the dining room. That would have been easier. Maya looked toward the 19 chairs against the wall. Yes. But you did not. No. Ethan waited. Maya had learned that silence was one of his most effective tools. Most people rushed to fill it. She usually did not. Tonight, however, the truth felt too close to hide. My father used a wheelchair, she said. Ethan became still. His name was Daniel Brooks. He had a stroke when I was 22. Maya traced one finger along the edge of her plate. Before that, he fixed heating systems. He could repair almost anything. Furnaces, water heaters, old window units. He carried a toolbox everywhere and complained when I called someone else to fix things. A small smile touched her face. Then one morning, he needed help buttoning his shirt. Ethan said nothing. Everyone loved him, Maya continued. That was the problem. Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly. Explain. Maya took a breath. We loved him so much that we started doing everything for him. My aunt cut his food before he asked. My cousin answered questions people asked him. I pushed his chair even when he told me to stop. Her voice softened. We thought helping meant making everything easy. Ethan looked down at his hands. One afternoon, I was opening a jar for him. He had been trying for maybe 2 minutes. I took it away and opened it in 3 seconds. Maya swallowed. He looked at me and said, Baby, they love me so much they forgot to let me be a man. Ethan froze mid-breath. The grandfather clock continued ticking. Maya looked at him carefully. I never forgot that. Ethan's voice was quieter when he spoke. Is that why you did not cut the cake? Yes, sir. You watched me struggle. Yes. And you decided to sit there. Maya nodded. My father did not need me to win every fight for him. Sometimes he needed someone who would stay while he fought it himself. Ethan turned toward the window. His reflection appeared beside Maya's in the dark glass. How long did he live after the stroke? 11 months. Were you with him? Every day I could be. Maya paused. His last birthday was in the hospital. My family planned to come after work. There was traffic. My aunt's car would not start. My cousin had an emergency. Her eyes lowered. Everyone had a reason. Ethan looked at her. And you? I was there. The answer was simple. Maya's eyes glistened, but her voice remained steady. I brought him a cupcake from a grocery store and one candle the nurses almost refused to let me light. Ethan glanced at the single candle standing in his cake. He understood. Maya continued. After he died, I made myself a promise. If I ever saw someone alone on their birthday, truly alone, I would not walk past them. Ethan's jaw tightened. You felt sorry for me. Maya shook her head immediately. No. Maya, I did not see a helpless man, Mr. Park. She held his gaze. I saw a lonely one. The words landed harder than pity ever could. Ethan looked away. Maya did not apologize. She did not soften the truth. The 19 empty chairs do not get to decide what you are worth, she said. Ethan stared at the crooked slice of cake on his plate. For 14 months, people had treated his body like the tragedy. Maya Brooks had quietly recognized that the deeper wound had nothing to do with his legs. And somehow, the shy woman who barely spoke above a whisper had become the first person brave enough to name it. The next morning, the Park estate returned to its usual order before sunrise. The 19 dining chairs were back around the walnut table. The crystal glasses had been removed. The cake was gone except for 2 slices wrapped in the refrigerator, one labeled Maya in Mrs. Caldwell's careful handwriting. But the plain wooden chair from the staff kitchen remained beside Ethan's place. At 9 sharp, 6 black sedans entered the gates. The men who stepped from them wore tailored coats and serious expressions, each carrying folders, phones, and problems they expected Ethan Park to solve. Marcus Reed arrived first. He entered the dining room, talking before he reached the table. Ethan, I need 5 minutes before everyone else gets here. The numbers from yesterday are not matching the revised report. Ethan sat at the head of the table, already dressed in a dark suit. Good morning, Marcus. Marcus stopped. Morning. Ethan waited. Marcus glanced at his folder. So, about the report. Ethan's expression did not change. Sit down. One by one, the other men arrived. Every name from the yellow legal pad was represented except 14. Ethan noticed. Of course he noticed. The 6 men opened laptops and arranged documents. None mentioned the previous day. None saw the burned candle Ethan had placed inside his jacket pocket that morning. Maya entered with coffee. She kept her eyes on the tray. Whatever had happened after midnight belonged to a quiet room, 1 candle, and 2 people. She expected nothing from it. That was why she stopped when Marcus pointed toward the wooden chair. Why is that here? Mrs. Caldwell looked over from the sideboard. I will remove it. She crossed the room. Leave it, Ethan said. Mrs. Caldwell stopped. Marcus gave a short laugh. It looks like it came from the kitchen. It did, Ethan replied. Silence. Maya stood near the doorway holding the coffee pot. Ethan looked at her. Not at the tray. At her. Then he nodded once toward the wooden chair. Maya's breath caught. She remained still. Ethan waited. Mr. Park, she said softly, I am working. The coffee can wait. 6 men turned toward her. Maya felt every pair of eyes. 3 months earlier, she would have disappeared into the hallway. She would have lowered her head and made herself smaller. Ethan said nothing else. He simply waited, exactly as she had waited while he cut the cake. Maya understood. She placed the coffee pot on the sideboard and walked across the dining room. Her shoes sounded impossibly loud against the marble. She passed men who controlled companies, money, and influence. Then she reached the plain wooden chair and sat beside Ethan Park. Marcus stared. Ethan, who is she? Ethan looked at the man who had called him at 8:41 the night before to discuss numbers. Her name is Maya Brooks. Marcus frowned. Your maid? Ethan's face became still. The only person in this room who remembered my birthday. No one moved. Marcus lowered his eyes. Another man slowly closed his laptop. The silence was different from the silence of the previous night. That silence had been empty. This one was full of understanding. Ethan opened the folder in front of him. Inside was the yellow legal pad. 20 names. 20 questions. He removed the page, folded it once, and set it aside. We are changing how I measure loyalty, he said. His voice was quiet. Controlled. Final. Maya looked at him. Ethan did not smile, but beneath the table, his hand rested near the small burned candle in his pocket. The meeting began. The wooden chair stayed. It remained there the next day, and the day after that. Weeks later, when new furniture was delivered for the estate, Mrs. Caldwell asked whether the old kitchen chair should finally be replaced. Ethan gave the same answer. Leave it. Because a man who once measured his life by the number of people who stood when he entered a room had learned something from the woman who chose to sit beside him. Respect was not 20 empty chairs waiting for important names. Loyalty was one person staying when there was nothing to gain. And that day, the world remembered what dignity looks like.